A 3-week break, the Verizon IndyCar Series is about to get very busy over the next 3 weeks with 6 races ahead, as today is also a heavy workload. Qualifying and race 1 of this second doubleheader weekend in the Verizon IndyCar Series. As we say, hi folks, welcome, Lee Diffie, along with IndyCar champ Paul Tracy and Formula One Steve Matchett with you here today for qualifying for round 9 of this 18-round championship that has been quite intriguing in 2014. Before qualifying, if you're new to IndyCar viewing, let's just show you what happens, because based on practice times yesterday, we have 2 groups entering qualifying, and in this 10-minute session we'll decide the quick 6, same for the second group, and then we progress to the second round of qualifying with those 12 cars, and we then break it down to see who advances to the Firestone Fast 6, and they're racing for pole position. Also in qualifying, the time is not decided at the traditional start-finish line, that broad yellow line in between turns 9 and 10 here on this NRG Stadium circuit is where the time will count, and it just gives the drivers an extra lap during this qualifying session. But Paul Tracy, I'm not sure if you want to get pole position, because this year in 2014, no pole winner has gone on to win the race, so maybe you don't want that top spot.
Well, if it was me, I would most certainly like it, and this break was much needed for the teams and the drivers. You had the first half of the season just flew by. But races were back to back to back. They've had a little bit of a break. Some of the guys, the drivers that had some ailing injuries from Long Beach, other little mix-ups with wrist injuries, things like that, they've had a chance to heal them up. And this is going to be a tough weekend. This doubleheader leads into 6 events back to back. So as we take it through to the end of the season, this is probably one of the toughest races you're going to have of the year.
Steve, welcome back to IndyCar for you, and what's grabbing your attention this weekend as we look at young Jack Hawksworth?
Well, thank you very much, and it's terrific to be here. It's nice to get out of the F1 studio and see other forms of motorsport, and this is a fantastic form of motorsport as we're watching Hawksworth come into the pits. What attracts me so far this weekend, Lee, it's the nature of the track. I mean, this track is incredibly bumpy. You may remember from last year's race that big bump going down the main straight down into turn 1. Well, that has received significant attention over the last 12 months, but it is still an issue, and getting the cars to ride this track comfortably for the drivers and efficiently for the cars in terms of lap time is a challenge. You'll see that right throughout the weekend, that it is still a very, very bumpy track.
Last time we were in Texas at Texas Motor Speedway, you saw that car with a different driver, the Fuzzies Vodka Ed Carpenter Racing Chevrolet, go to victory lane with the owner-driver behind the wheel. This is British driver Mike Conway. And Paul, he's had his hands full. He is a terrific street and road course racer, but he and the team have had their hands full with this car this weekend.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just been a tale of 2 fortunes. Texas, for Ed, the car was so dominant all weekend long. He was quick, right at the front, won the race commandingly at the end. And here, watching the car yesterday, it was just a complete nightmare looking to drive, almost undrivable. You know, we know the track is bumpy. We know it's going to be rough on the drivers, rough on the cars, but it is what it is, and you've got to get the car to work at least somewhat good. But expecting from your engineer or telling your team, I can't get around the track, it's too bumpy, it is what it is, and you have to deal with it at some point.
Well, we're watching that car in practice with Conway driving the Ed Carpenter machine yesterday. It was clear that the car was way too softly sprung. It's an easy solution for the engineers and drivers. You know, hey, because of the nature of the track, yeah, you want to try and get the car relatively softly sprung to help it ride around this track. But Paul, you go too far in terms of soft spring, and I think we saw that yesterday on Conway's car, and the damper just doesn't have the valving to make that work.
Yeah, and we were talking about it yesterday, Steve. You see this track it's basically a big, gigantic parking lot for the football stadium, and it's all concrete, and you see the concrete every 10 to 12 feet. There's a cut line to relieve the concrete, and every one of those cut lines in the concrete is a bump. So theoretically, this track has got probably 10,000 bumps all the way around it. So there's a lot of, like we talked yesterday, the shock man is your most important guy this weekend.
This is Simon Pagenaud, who set the fastest time yesterday in the second practice session. 2 45-minute practice sessions yesterday, and the Frenchman was the quickest with an impressive lap of a 1 minute even .14, and he feels pretty good this weekend. He likes his chances. He wants to rise in the championship standings. He sits 4th at the moment behind Ryan Hunter-Reay, Helio Castroneves, and points leader Will Power. So incidentally, Power set the pace in the opening practice session, and here's a guy who really needs to rebound. 2 times the winner this year, of course, the Indy 500 champ Ryan Hunter-Reay. Things have not been going his way of late.
And these races are usually his strong point. Detroit was a struggle. He was so quick in Long Beach until he had the trouble in the race. But Detroit, he had a poor race, and this weekend hasn't started off very well either.
I do like the idea in car racing that qualifying is split into these 2 groups. We're looking at Group 1 now, and Group 2 will be out later. But the idea of giving the cars more track space, more track position, and taking away some of the traffic that is a constant problem, as we know in Formula 1. I think this is a cool idea.
Ryan Hunter-Reay leads this session at the moment, so you've got to be in that top 6 to advance to the second phase of this 3-phase qualifying format. On the outside looking in was Simon Pagenaud. He's just put himself in. So it's Hunter-Reay, Pagenaud, Dixon, Briscoe, Kimball. So all 3 of the Ganassi cars. There's a 4th one, that's Tony Kanaan. He'll be in the second group. But on the outside at the moment, second in the championship, Castroneves, Munoz, Huates, Jack Hawksworth, and now Castroneves jumps up a little bit, but not enough. He's still in 7th, and time's running out with 40 seconds to play.
It's incredible how fast these sessions run down, as you say, now in the closing 30 seconds. Jack Hawksworth yesterday put the car into the concrete, and there's a lot of concrete barriers around here. Of course, nowhere to go, and damaged the left front suspension on his car. But the mechanics and engineers worked overnight, got the car ready, did not, fortunately, damage the suspension mountings on the chassis. And so that car good to go again. Great to see.
With this being the Shell and Pennzoil Grand Prix of Houston, this car needs to figure prominently. Helio Castroneves jumps to the top of the qualifying order in the dying seconds of this opening group. Now Simon Pagenaud eclipses his time, so it's Pagenaud, Castroneves, Hunter-Reay, Hinchcliffe, Dixon, Briscoe. This man here, Charlie Kimball, has been pushed out. This is his chance to try and rectify that. In 2 more corners' time, we'll find out whether he can jump up. Speaking of jumping up, Sebastian Bourdais has jumped up into the top 6. Briscoe's been pushed out now. Across the line for Charlie Kimball, and he can't do it. He'll miss out. Actually, he does do it. I take that back. He leapfrogs Scott Dixon. Dixon's on the outside now. Whew.
Yeah, it is fast and frantic, isn't it? You're right. Scott Dixon now on the outside looking. Charlie Kimball takes that 6th spot. But again, when you see the onboard cameras just show how much understeer is built into these cars, unintentionally, I'm sure, but boy, you see the drivers fighting it every lap.
Scott Dixon just worked his way into the top 6 as the checkered comes out. But historically, through my driving career, the Indy cars have always been an understeering car. It just seems to be the nature of the weight balance of the car. It seems to be more rearward weight balance than a Formula 1 car. You got a longer wheelbase, which puts more weight on the back of the car, which keeps the weight off the front and doesn't allow you to get as much front grip as you would like.
Yeah.
Simon Pagenaud, he ends the second practice session quickest. He ends this first group, this first phase of qualifying quickest. Can he figure in this championship fight that's getting ever so interesting? Fast approaching the halfway mark of the season, the fight for the IndyCar Championship continues to stay tight. 3 weeks ago at Texas Motor Speedway, championship leader Will Power committed his 4th penalty in 5 races. But the theme of his season so far has been the ability to overcome setbacks and finish strong. With 9 races left, Power must strive for Penske perfection as his teammate Helio Castroneves sits well within striking distance. It's terrific to be back in Houston. We are here some 3 months earlier than last year's doubleheader on the first official weekend of summer 2014 at the newly named NRG Stadium Park at the MD Anderson Cancer Center Speedway. This 1.6 mile circuit lays out a very big challenge for the 23 drivers in qualifying and taking part in rounds 9 and 10 this weekend. So let's have a look at who advances through to the second phase of qualifying as the second group now comes out on track. Here are your quick guys.
Simon Pagenaud has been quick all weekend, but Castroneves right there on his heels.
Hinchcliffe did some good work there, so too did his Andretti Autosport teammate, and then Steve, right at the last moment, Scott Dixon slid into that important sixth place.
Yeah, Scott Dixon breaks in, and that's good news. These guys, however, they do not break in. Kimball, Briscoe, Mike Conway again still seems to be struggling with the setup of that car, but he is not alone. That is something that's pretty common up and down the pit lane. Hawksworth, they're down there, and also Carlos Munoz.
Time to head to pit road. We check in with Kevin Lee. Hi, Kev.
Hi, Lee. Hot here today, but we're going to see some good action here for the next 2 days, and we'll certainly be watching Will Power. Comes in with a lot of momentum, obviously, as the championship leader. 39 points up on his teammate Helio Castroneves, and he recovered from a mistake. A pit road speeding penalty at Texas to still finish in the second position. And last year, this is really where I think it got started for this season. He won race number 2 from the 9th position, won the finale at Fontana, won the opener this year at St. Pete. So Power is rolling, but he's one of many feeling the challenges of this very difficult circuit. In practice number 1 yesterday, watch this as he launched over the curbs. And remember, this is a driver that's had significant back issues before. He got good air there. He said he was very sore yesterday, but his work with physio, his trainer last night and today, he feels fine today. He's not sure what he has, even though he was fastest in the first practice, 9th in practice number 2 with some traffic. I think it's a pretty good, safe bet that Will Power is going to be quick here today. Over to Jan Beekes.
And Kevin, you talk about being fast in practice, and Lee already mentioned it, that Simon Pagenaud was the fastest car in practice, and by a pretty big margin, and now he was the fastest in group number 1. The team said, well, we know that there's no points and no money in practice, but what that does, that allows them now that he's on pit lane. They didn't have to change the car for these conditions. They knew they already had a fast car. They would probably transfer. Now they got to read on the track in today's conditions, and they can tweak on it. So said practice and being fast definitely gave them an advantage. Kelly?
Well, Jan, while Simon Pagenaud was certainly the class of the field yesterday, it seemed newcomer Luca Filippi from Rahal Letterman Lanigan got the most attention. This is his first start of the season, just his 5th ever IndyCar race, and the Italian was 3rd quick in practice 2, 4th overall. Now, 2 of his starts did come here at Houston last year. In fact, he set the fastest lap in race 2. And yesterday, Luca told me that he is so excited to be back. He loves this series, loves these cars. He's just trying to keep himself calm and make the most, that is, out of this opportunity, because he knows they don't come around all that often, Lee.
Thanks, Kelly. And you might remember, folks, that this guy, in addition to being a very accomplished race car driver, does what we do. He works in television, covering the Formula One World Championship. He works for Italian Sky Broadcasting, and has been quite some time since he has been in a car. In fact, it was here on the streets of NRG Park Stadium circuit last October. So hasn't driven any form of car in some 9 months. So to come out and be P3 in practice, that was pretty good.
You know, time is everything in a race car, and when you've been out of a car for 6-7 months, these guys that are out here now, they've been testing all winter. They've done basically a half a season now to this point, and to jump in yesterday in an unfamiliar team and go P3 is pretty impressive.
It's very impressive, and it's like any athlete. You know, you can train and train and train, but there's nothing like actually training in your own sport, whether or not that's being a football player or whether or not it's a racing driver. But Paul, as you well know, there's nothing like the strains on the neck and the strains on the body. The only way you're going to get that is through driving a race car.
Yeah, the only thing that you can maybe do is do a little bit of go-karting, but it's just not the same.
Let's talk more about the man who's quickest at the moment, Kev. Joseph Newgarden, off to a good start.
And he's just back out on a fresh set of sticker reds, and this is a pleasant surprise for Newgarden, who was 17th and 18th in the 2 practice sessions yesterday. He said it's not really a balance problem. It's not a grip problem. He described it as trying to make the car more drivable. They took a big swing at it, make some significant changes, but he was optimistic going in that they were going to have something. So let's see what he does here on the sticker reds.
Talking with his driver coach, Barry Waddell, this morning, they were really focusing on that opening chicane. Incidentally, overnight, that second curb in the turns 1-2 complex.
Plenty clear behind, no pressure from behind. We're going to need about 2 tenths based on the first session, 2 tenths.
Has been shaved down some 2 inches, the opening 3 to 4 feet of that second curb. That's a good thing. Hopefully we'll see no more of those big wheelies.
Well, for sure. That is a tough spot on the track, and with the race, the starts, restarts, hitting that curb is really easy to do, but they've shaved down the very front edge of that, taken the sharpness off of it, and hopefully that'll cure the problems.
There it is. Speaking with Martin Thake from Motorsports Consulting Services, who puts this track together, and boy, it's been a relief for him to have some couple of weeks to put it together, unlike last year where he literally had just days, he and his staff, to put it together. So, as time rolls on in this session with 3.5 left, it's Newgarden, Will Power, Takuma Sato, Luca Filippi, Justin Wilson, and the rookie Mikhail Aloshin. This man here, we ride with Graham Rahal at the moment. He's got time on his side, but he is not in the top 6 yet.
And
smooth and fast here, smooth and fast, strong laps.
This happened just a few moments ago. And Graham Rahal certainly not the only driver to be caught out like that this weekend, Steve. It's a hot spot.
It's a hot spot, it is, and considering, you know, what we've seen, certainly with Will Power getting airborne on the curb, the drivers are very wise, I think, to say, hey, you know, if you think you're going to get it wrong, I'm going to go wide and just miss it.
And Graham is right on the cuff of advancing here. He's got a couple of minutes left. And to me, this weekend, he seems a little extra motivated than we've seen in the past few races. With Luca coming in, obviously he's very highly touted. He has a reputation of being one of the quickest guys in Europe. Definitely comes with a lot of credentials. So I see a lot of extra motivation in Rahal this weekend.
This is Will Power, quickest in the opening practice session yesterday, the points leader, the only driver in the Verizon IndyCar Series to complete 100% of the laps this season.
I'm sure Will be feeling a little sore this morning after that incident yesterday going over that curbing. It is a definite weak spot in race car design, just by the very nature to the driver. And Paul, you can talk about this far more than I can, that the drivers are sitting absolutely right on the bottom of the chassis itself. So when that car comes down with a slam, boy, it really does jar the spine.
Well, the only way I can describe it to somebody that's out there is if you've ever slipped going down a set of steps and then you've fallen right on your butt, on your tailbone, that's what it feels like when the car slams on the ground. It just sends a spike right through your spine, cracks all the bones like you've just been to the chiropractor. I mean, it gives you stars in your eyes for a second.
There's been some big movement in the timing. Look at this. Luca Filippi goes to the top, returning to the series, and is now the quickest. Newgarden is second. Rahal, so both the Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan cars are in the top 3 at the moment. Sato, last year's Polster, is 4th. Power is 5th. Andretti is 6th. Juan Pablo Montoya on the outside. So too Tony Kanaan, Saavedra. Marco Andretti has been pushed down because Takuma Sato goes to the top. He's already had 2 poles this year, and the AJ Foyt racing driver is looking good again.
Will Power in 6th. That is a surprise.
Sato. Again, you can see when Sato comes around that final corner, the car takes 2 stabs at settling itself, coming down the front straight towards turn 1. Bang, bang again. Sato right up to the very edge of the track to make that work.
This guy is on the outside looking in. The championship points leader, Will Power, has been relegated to 7th place, and time is running out. 17 seconds to go for Power to get the job done and advance to the second phase. Can he do it? There's the line. We wait for the time to come up. Will Power.
Your last lap here. You got one more lap. P7.
Right, son, this is it. You've got the least amount of fuel on board now. Will needs the lap, and he does need that lap to advance. The car is going to be at its lightest and its fastest, but he needs to make it work now.
His Penske teammate, Juan Pablo Montoya, does jump into the top 6. He's 4th at the moment. Mikhail Aloshin now. He pushes Graham Rahal out, so Power is down in 8th. This is pressure time.
He is absolutely pushing to the limit.
Yeah. You can see the car sliding. There's the understeer almost every corner, and then the tendency on this Dallara chassis for the back end to then step out of line. Look at the steering input from Power.
He's got 2 more corners to go. I think he's on a pretty good lap right now. He just needs to get these last 2 90-degree corners nice and clean. Oh, wow, close to the wall. I think he left a mark on the wall. And the line is right here, and
as Tim Cindric, the president of Penske Racing, does
wow.
Will Power do it?
He does not.
He does not. He came through turns 9 and 10 to the yellow timing line, and nothing changed.
No.
Power, in fact, has been buried down in 9th position now.
Currently P5, you're the last car in. So.
Justin Wilson, at the dying moments, springboards himself through to the second phase. So too does this man, Mikhail Aloshin, the SPM Racing entry teammate to Simon Pagenaud. He makes it through points leader Will Power does not. That is the huge news of qualifying. 2 of the 3 Penske cars in, but the one that leads this championship does not. And that would not be expected after yesterday, not expected at all on a street or road course as far as Will Power is concerned.
Oh, he's upset too.
Surprise of qualifying. And there's a whole lot more to come here in Houston. Here at the moment, but the first of this doubleheader race weekend, the Shell and Pennzoil Grand Prix of Houston, is coming up next right here on NBCSN. And join us the same time tomorrow as well, 3 p.m. Eastern, for race 2 of this very busy and important weekend. Let's show you who's going through to the second phase of qualifying.
And we have Simon Pagenaud. He's been quick all weekend. Castro Neves, James Hinchcliffe from Canada having a good session.
Hunter-Ray, important. Bourdais, very important for him as well. Get that momentum going.
Scott Dixon. And then we have Super Texas team, Takuma Sato, quickest in Group 2. And the Italian who came over, it's his first race in 6-8 months, Luca Filippi, and Joseph Newgarden advancing.
Well, let's have a look at the grid from 13 on. Some big changes there. Sato's car did a great job, I think, to get into that position. Kimball and Rahal, Briscoe, look at this. Marco Andretti, Mike Conway, we've talked about him, but look at this surprise. Will Power just simply couldn't get that car hooked up. Either that or just feeling some pain in his spine from yesterday. Sebastian Saavedra down there at the bottom, and then Jack Horsworth, as we talked about. Kanan and Munoz.
Pretty incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
The points leader buried in this pack on a very difficult and challenging circuit. Will Power has his work cut out, and he is not happy. Points leader does not advance. Things not good for the championship leader, Will Power. Look at the reaction here when he knew he was bounced out of qualifying. No chance of going through to the Fast 12, let alone the Firestone Fast 6. He will start 18th, and that's not a good spot. Kev?
And it will be his second worst starting spot for Team Penske on a road or a street course. Will, what kept you from advancing?
I just went the wrong way with the setup again. I didn't learn from Detroit. I went the same way, so yep. Looks like
traffic not an issue. It was just simply the car.
No, I didn't get it right.
Well, you have a standing start in race 1. Is that good or bad coming from 18th?
I don't know. It depends if no one stalls. You know, is what it is, and yeah, we'll see what we can do. You know, it's pretty tough around this place. You can't pass. It's difficult too. And, you know, we're just going to have to try and be tricky with the strategy, I think.
Okay, thank you. He does have an extra set of red sticker tires, so 2 sets of those for the race. I think, while it's bad for Will Power, it's going to make it highly entertaining for the rest of us later today.
And claiming responsibility for the failure to advance. However, if there's somewhat of a form guide to follow, Power started 14th on the streets of Long Beach earlier this year, finished second, started 16th on the streets of Belle Isle, Detroit, and won the opening doubleheader there on the season. So we'll see what the championship points leader Will Power can do later today from 18th position. Let's talk more about Team Penske. Here's Jan.
Yes, and so interesting to hear Will Power say that he missed it on the setup because Helio Castro Neves has had the opposite. He just spoke with the team in between the 2 rounds saying, don't change anything. I like the car. Of course, when you have a 3-car team, you can try different strategies. And what we learned there was that oftentimes the driver for Roger Penske, as he looks on at Helio Castro Neves, that at the end of the day, it's the driver that makes the choice which one of those setups he wants, and that's why the frustration for Power. Obviously, he chose one, unlike his teammates that are working well.
Paul Tracy, what did you like to do? Go it alone or work with your teammates?
Well, I think you've got to work with your teammates, but I think what's so impressive about Helio is, you know, his age. He's now close to 40 years old. He's been in the series a long time. And when Will came on the scene, I mean, he completely destroyed Helio for the first couple of seasons. And you either stand up and respond, or you throw in the towel. And Helio's responded. I mean, he defies his age. He's getting quicker and quicker with age. He's moved on into the fast group here. And it's pretty impressive.
Let's have a look at the times as we count the minutes down, Steve. It's the rookie Michaela Lotion who leads, and it's Dixon, Sato, Hunter-Ray, Wilson and Bourdais. That's at the moment the 6 who may progress, but we know that it's going to change over the next 3 minutes.
It's going to change, absolutely it will do, and as more rubber is put down on track, that will improve the traction around here. You can see the car still bouncing. You can see where the rubber is laid down. It almost, now we're seeing those sort of black stripes where you can see the cars bouncing. Kevin, what have you got for us on Newgard?
Well, they made it a priority to get out of segment number 1. They're the first I remember in a long time, and certainly the only one today to use 2 different sets of sticker reds in segment number 1 just to get out. So he's the only one right now that's on the scuffed reds here in my section up front in round number 2. So it's going to be challenging to advance, but they wanted to make sure they at least didn't start in the back.
And just to remind you folks that the IndyCar competitors have to run on 2 different compounds of tires, but the big X factor in the Verizon IndyCar Series, Paul, are these red tires that they only get access to today, qualifying day. They're not allowed to practice on them. And that is something that's still boggling the mind of champion driver like Juan Pablo Montoya. He's like, this is just kind of, in my mind, it's crazy that we don't get the chance, but it throws a bigger challenge at us.
Well, and as we see James Hinchcliffe here take a big slide out of the corner, Firestone, you know, they bring these reds and they don't really tell you that, okay, this weekend the tire is going to be grippier, it's going to last longer. They don't really give you a heads up. You know, sometimes the reds are quick, but then fall off really bad, and they're worse than the blacks on a long run. Sometimes they're better, so you don't really know that until you get to the race weekend.
On board with James Hinchcliffe, who holds the fastest time at the moment over Newgarden. Wilson, Aloshin, Luca Filippi has jumped into the top 6, and this man here, Scott Dixon, is in that all-important 6th place. No, he's not. He goes to the top as we speak. Dixon, the defending series champion, right on top.
You bring up a good point, Paul, about these red tyres, and I wonder the softer, more grippy tyres. And I wonder whether or not that's something that caught Will out on setup. Again, not able to run them until today. I wonder if, in discussion with engineering last night, they went for a slightly stiffer setup on the car, stiffer springs to control the bounce of the car, hoping that when the car was put onto the red tyres, they would have more mechanical grip off that red. And the car hasn't got that grip.
Yeah, I mean, it's not very often that you see Will Power and his engineer, Dave Faustino, make a lot of mistakes in qualifying. I mean, they are the standard in terms of putting down the fast lap. As we see Luca come around, he's also right there, 2nd place. So this guy is very, very impressive this weekend.
Changes by the 2nd, though, because Hinchcliffe now takes the top spot. Takuma Sato is 2nd. No, he's not. Dixon's now 2nd. Sato's 3rd. Filippi has been pushed back to 4th. Wilson is 5th. Ryan Hunter-Ray is 6th. This man here, Elio Castro Neves, is in 8th at the moment, and time rapidly running out. Pressure is on in the yellow submarine for the 2nd time we've seen it this year. Of course, ran this famed livery at the Indianapolis 500. He's on the outside looking in at the moment.
If we watch Elio here, he's just got such a smooth style.
And he does it.
And he jumps up and he's going to advance. He's just so smooth and fluid in the car. Where you see a lot of other guys are wrestling with the car and they're really aggressive with their steering inputs. And I think that's why Helio's so successful at Indianapolis, because he's so smooth.
This is Luca Filippi, the 28-year-old Italian, back in the Verizon IndyCar Series. Almost brushes the wall there. He has been impressing people up and down pit lane and in this paddock. And he's got a lovely personality as well. He's just a good guy, and he's a good driver. He advances. He will make it into the Firestone Fast 6. What a performance. Michaela Lotion. At the moment, he's down in 10th. That's not good enough. There's no more time left on the clock. His lap runs out right now. Does he do anything? No, he does not. Lotion will not make it through to the Firestone Fast 6. But last year's pole sitter does. Sato is on the pace. Back at the NRG Park Stadium here in Houston, Texas for qualifying for round 9. It's the first of this doubleheader weekend, the 2nd doubleheader of the year. There are 3 in total. And let's have a look who will make up the Firestone Fast 6. Can Takuma Sato do it back-to-back here in Houston? He was on pole last year. There are 6 different teams represented in this top 6. Who do you like?
Well, impressive is Takuma Sato driving for AJ Foyt. This is his hometown race for the Foyt team, and pretty impressive for James Hinchcliffe. He was not very good in practice, and he's stepped up.
So there are the guys that do. Let's have a look at the guys that do not advance. Here are your grid positions 7 through to 12. Justin Wilson did not get through, neither did Ryan Hunter-Reay right behind him. Bourdais, Alocian. Juan Pablo Montoya, again yesterday, struggling with a lot of understeer on the car and seems to have struggling him yet again. Down in 12th, Joseph Newgarden.
Allegedly, there was an incident during that session between Bourdais and Alocian, which is under investigation. However, it will not change the Firestone Fast 6. That is next when we come back. Who do you like? Will it be Helio Castro-Neves in the Pennzoil car at the Shell and Pennzoil Grand Prix? What about the Mayor of Hinchtown, James Hinchcliffe? Or could it be Super Texas driver Takuma Sato here in AJ's home state? We'll find out. It's time for the Firestone Fast 6 for the Shell and Pennzoil Grand Prix of Houston. A very busy day, hot and humid. It's in the 80s, it's climbing to the 90s, and there is a 30 to 40% chance of thunderstorms later this afternoon. But Paul, talk about how physically taxing this would be to qualify ahead of this afternoon's 90-lap, 153-mile race. It's a big workload.
Well, definitely getting through the race today. A normal race weekend, the guys would qualify on Saturday, race Sunday. They're having to do 2 qualifying sessions this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. And to advance all the way through 3 groups, I mean, these Fast 6 guys, this is a pretty physically taxing endeavor leading into a race in 2 hours. So the hydration and getting the fuel tank topped up with energy again for the race is going to be key.
Radio communication to former F1 driver Takuma Sato. You're the only car out there at the moment, so let's go and bank a lap, Steve.
Yeah, and it's good to get this lap in when there's little traffic out there. We talked about it earlier on, how good it is. I believe that the qualifying is split into those 2 groups for the first part of qualifying to get clear track. It's always a problem when you are gifted a clear track by the fact that the other teams and drivers sit in pit lane waiting for their decision to go out. This is the perfect time to be on track.
Hearing the voice of NBCSN's Formula One analyst Steve Matchett. Championship-winning driver Paul Tracy is with us. On pit road, Jan Vikas, Kelly Stavis, Kevin Lee, and also our own Robin Miller. Hey, Robin.
Hey, Lee. You know, I was talking to AJ Foyt yesterday about Sato. I said, what do you think? He said, he said he's still fast. He said he's had some bad luck this year, but think about this. His first victory and his only victory was last year at Long Beach. He won the pole at Detroit this year, another street course, led the first 30 laps, had some bad things happen to him that weren't his fault. And here he is again. He won the pole here at Texas last year. The guy's always been fast. Steve knows this from watching him in Formula One. He's always been quick. He just has trouble getting to the end of the race sometimes, and I don't know. We're not really sure what it is, but AJ Foyt keeps saying, we've really calmed the guy down. He's fine. He's going to win a race before the year's over. So we'll see what happens, Kevin Lee.
Simon Pagenaud was able to advance out of the first 2 groups despite dealing with some brake issues. This is one of the new brake rotors. They made a change after the first segment, despite the fact that he was the fastest in his group in segment 1. They barely got through segment number 2. This is an issue that they've been dealing with going back to Detroit. Simon told me last night he thought they had that rectified, but still some issues, just a little bit here so far today. Also something to keep an eye on. This is a new compound of the Firestone rain tire. And as sunny and hot as it is right now, we had sprinkles just a few minutes ago. This is not the intermediate that we've used the last couple of years, so this will deal with heavy rain a little better than what we've seen the last couple of years. Hopefully it doesn't come into play this weekend, but it might.
Again, 30 to 40% chance of a thunderstorm later this afternoon. We'll see if that eventuates. The weather in this part of the country fluctuates very quickly.
Boy, does it ever. It is incredibly hot outside of our booth, I must say, down in the pit lane. Boy, oh boy, my feelings go out to the guys down there and the girls down there. It is incredibly hot, very, very hot, very humid, taxing for everybody, but certainly for the drivers. And already, a little earlier on, Paul, we just saw some drops of water on one of the camera lenses.
Yeah, that could be a factor today later in the day, but I mean, going back to the brakes, and we talk about carbon brakes as Sato comes in. The air duct systems on these cars are not as advanced as a Formula One car. These cars are probably 100 pounds heavier than a Formula One car. These brakes absolutely take a massive pounding, and you can speak on this, Steve. We've seen some braking issues in Formula One, some brake failures in Montreal. This is a very tough track on brakes.
Very much so it is. All the components on the IndyCar chassis, rotors and calipers and pads produced by Brembo, and they are quite durable. They're big, heavy brakes, but round here, the very nature of the track, 10 turns, there's a lot of start, stop, fast, short straights, and then heavy on the brakes again. They really do get a massive workout around here.
If you're just joining us for qualifying, big news is championship leader Will Power did not advance out of the opening phase of qualifying. One man who did, but did not make it to this Firestone Fast 6 is former series champ Ryan Hunter-Reay.
Yes, and unfortunately for Ryan, it was only 1/10 of a second for you that prevented you from advancing. Where was that missing?
I don't know, to be honest. You know, I felt like I had a lap to put us well within the top 6, and that's what it is about the Verizon IndyCar Series right now, is that the competition is so tough. There's so much talent in the series that I thought I had a lap good enough for P1, P2, and I find out I'm P7 or P8. It's just it's amazing. That's how it goes, though. I mean, you got to be ready for it. And you've always, every lap you go out there, every corner you go into, you've got to be pushing yourself, to that next level, and even stepping over it at times. So unfortunate that we didn't make it, but we're P8, or P7 or P8. We can work from there.
Talking about being ready for it, what about later today? What about the conditions? It's 8th place where you'll be starting on that standing start. What about the conditions physically for you getting ready for a hot, humid day?
Yeah, the toughest part is that you don't get any relief from cracking the visor because the air is so hot and the humidity is so high. You don't get any cooling. So that's the toughest part about it, and this track is extremely bumpy. But I'll be honest with you, it's nice in the car. Just it's better than standing here in pit lane. Once you get out of the car, all the sweat comes out, and your body really starts going into prevention mode. But in the car, it's definitely very physical. You're breathing hard all the time. I'd imagine, knowing where my heart rate is, I'd imagine I'm up around upper 170s, mid 180s in the car, sustained.
All right, be a tough day.
Thanks.
Great job.
And even for someone as extremely fit as Ryan Hunter-Reay, this is an immensely taxing day. Just want to reiterate a point. This season in the Verizon IndyCar Series, no pole winner has converted that pole position into a victory. And in fact, the average starting position this year of race winners is just shy of 9th on the grid, which is incredibly high.
It is, and as we watch Luca here, this guy, he could be the surprise of the session here. He's been so quick in practice, very impressive in the 2 qualifying sessions so far. He's got a nice clean track, Steve, and see if we can put it all together.
Yeah, out on the red tires. Sato on his run earlier on, I think was not using the red tires. But speaking of that heat, Ryan Hunter-Reay also mentioning how hot it is. Delara, for the first time here, who built the chassis, and it's a mandated spec series, of course. All chassis are built by Delara. Have given the teams permission to modify the nose on the front of the car with very specific templates to allow a cooling duct to be opened up in the front of the nose to try and help the drivers. This is a response to the high heat and humidity from last year, and of course no different now, as we've just been talking about, and Ryan was talking about it there too. So the guys do have the possibility to do that. Not all teams will do that, but because there is going to be a slight deficit on downforce, but there is a possibility there. Kelly, what have you got for us?
As we watch Luca Filippi make his lap, the team obviously thrilled with the efforts of this young Italian. The team communication was pretty interesting and entertaining after that last session, saying first, great job, young man, and then the call came over, hey guys, give that car a good look over. I think he said hello to every wall out there.
And you saw him there just on the previous lap ride that curb in turn 4 pretty high and then got on the gas and snapped sideways. Luca Filippi's got his hands full, but he's performing well. Runs a little wide there again, and his lap not quite as good as what Takuma Sato laid down earlier, so we'll see if this is any better.
And you can see the driving style. He seems to be one of these drivers that just pitches into the corner, throws it in, catches it. His hands are busy all the time, which is kind of a complete opposite to Helio, who's quickest right now, where he's very smooth, very quiet hands all the time.
Order is James Hinchcliffe, Scott Dixon, Helio Castroneves, Takuma Sato, then Filippi. So it's changing rapidly, and the 6th driver to post a time goes right to the top. It is Schmidt, Hamilton, Peterson Motorsports driver Simon Pagenaud, but it was only for a second because Filippi goes to the top.
And that's impressive. I mean, we saw the lap there. He was throwing it into the corner. As we come back to Helio, you see he's pushing right to the limit, Steve.
He really is, and this facet of the car where the back end tries to overtake the front, if you like, heavy under braking. Paul, you were describing that yesterday. It's not a good trait in the chassis in any way, is it? You really have to fight the car around here.
No, I mean, there's obviously a lot of front wing on these cars. Castro Neves to the lead. The more front wing you put in these cars, the more downforce it takes away from the rear. It's kind of a negative. There's a sweet spot that the front wing likes to be in. And if you step over that, it just wants the rear end to come around in front of the front.
Yeah, you can see we've got fairly big main element on the car anyway. And if you try and crank up more downforce on the front of the car to try and cure that understeer, the tendency for the car to go straight on, really you could also try dropping the tyre pressures around a little bit as well. But on this Dallara chassis, if you do that, if you try and secure the front end of the car, then you just get the back end of the car all of a sudden becomes into oversteer, whether it's left or right. It doesn't really cure the understeer, you just generate oversteer on the car.
Yeah. There's only 10 seconds left, and Luca Filippi on his return to the series holds the quickest time. What about last year's pole sitter, Takuma Sato? At the moment, he's down in 6th. The top 4 cars have broken the 1-minute barrier around this 1.6-mile track. Helio Castro Neves now takes the top spot. The Shell and Pennzoil Grand Prix of Houston, could the Pennzoil Penske machine be on pole? We'll find out. The checkered flag is out.
Checker flag. Box
Sato finishes his lap. Nothing changes there. Scott Dixon jumps to 2nd. Hinchcliffe comes across the line. He moves himself to 4th. This is Simon Pagenaud. Can he do anything about the Brazilian? Yes, he can. Simon Pagenaud goes to the top. Filippi gets loose coming out of that final turn. He flashes across the line. 4th is the best that he can manage. Simon Pagenaud at the final moments of this session puts it on the pole position in the Firestone Fast 6. How about that? And look at the team. Schmidt, Hamilton, Peterson Motorsports, led by the team manager Rob Edwards, are delighted for Simon Pagenaud. He puts it on the pole position. He gets that Verizon P1 award, and we'll hear from him when we come back. How about that? There's reason to celebrate if you are Simon Pagenaud. For the first time in his open wheel career, in the Verizon IndyCar Series, he wins the Verizon P1 award and sets the pace. He's with Kevin Lee.
60th start in either IndyCar or Champ Car, but you will lead the field to the green later today from a standing start for the first time. How did you get this done?
Well, the Oculus car has been really fast all weekend with the Honda engine, and man, we knew we had a fantastic car yesterday. It was just a matter of making it happen today, which is, you know, those drivers in IndyCar, we're just all pushing so hard that it's very difficult to get the lap time, to get the lap all together because you're pushing so hard. So it's awesome. I feel very happy for the whole team. They deserve this one, and starting from first, considering our race pace is a very good sign.
I know you still had to deal with some brake issues. You changed the rotor after the first segment. Any concern throughout the day here?
Well, yeah. First qualifying and second qualifying, we had to mix the brakes. We had troubles with one of the wheels, and I couldn't stop well. So that's why we barely made it in Q2, but all squared up for Q3, and as you could see, she's running just fine.
Nice job. Can't enjoy it too long. We've got a race here in just a little while. Simon Pagenaud in race 1 starts in front.
And he is one of the hottest drivers on the open market at the moment, looking towards next season, and that can only help his cause. Standing start, as Kevin said, in race 1 here in Houston. We're looking forward to that. I think probably the star out of that top 6, Luca Filippi, returning to the series.
Massively impressed. He hasn't driven a car in 9 months, and to get into the Fast 6 is very impressive. The quiet guy, Justin Wilson, on row 4, he could be a threat today. Hunter Ray disappointed with his run, but he feels that he's still in a good spot and can win.
Steve, as we roll through the grid, what's grabbing your attention heading into this opening race of the doubleheader weekend?
You guys already touched on it. It was Luca Filippi. Absolutely fantastic demonstration of getting back into the car and what it can do. Not only that, I was watching his reaction when it got out of the car. The first thing he did, he went and congratulated every single mechanic on the car, patted him on the back for a job well done. Very, very impressive.
Standing start coming up. It can only be exciting, that's for sure. And this is just the beginning of a very busy weekend in H-Town here in Houston for the Verizon IndyCar Series. Will Power, the points leader, did not make it through and will start from 18th position. He has his work cut out, but so too do all 23 drivers. We congratulate the pole winner, Simon Pagenaud. Don't go anywhere. The Shell Pennzoil Grand Prix of Houston is next.